Right.
So it's like, when do I pull him in? And so really creating serious structure and being intentional about it
Yeah.
is a game changer when you're trying to balance both. You know?
Absolutely. And it sounds to me like you were also very careful in choosing that big client and making
Mhm.
sure there would be some flexibility there,
Oh,
right? They're not saying you must have your butt in your chair between 9 and 5 every day, and there's no room
yeah.
for school pickups or for going to the doctor's office, what have you, right? You chose a space where,
Right.
yes, there's that structure, and they will
Mhm.
also provide the flexibility that you need when those things need to be both. Hey, I'm Teen Zekas.
And hey, I'm Ilika Follette. We are business owners and moms with corporate backgrounds, and we are all about getting Black women paid in both corporate and business.
And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast.
Let's go.
Hello, welcome to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. I am Teen Zekas, your pivot and pay strategist.
And I am Ilika Follette, your business strategist.
And today we are talking about both, right? We always say that this podcast is about, if you're in corporate, you're doing the, climbing the corporate ladder thing, or if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing the business owner thing. Today we are talking all about doing both, right? Whether you call it a side hustle or you are building out your business, until you can quit your job or, whatever the thing is, but you are doing both. Today's your day. Today's your episode. We want to talk about the benefits of doing both at once, the challenges. We're going to get into it all. But to start it off, I want to start with an update from Miss Ilika. We did an episode a few weeks back about going back to work, having been an entrepreneur. So you have actually started at your job, and I want to hear everything. How is it going? Tell us.
Yeah. So it's so funny that you say that, even like starting at your job. And what I realized, even as I started working with this company, is that it was going to be a big shift already, but I had to shift the way I looked at it as well. One of the things that I began to look at it as, instead of it being like back in 2016 when I was working for those big companies and that sort of thing, and I was just an employee. I was just at the job. This was my career. This was forever, right?
Sure.
I look at this as like a big contract. It's like, this is my biggest contract right now, because we all know as business women, when we have businesses, we have different contracts. And so I have a friend. She always called her job her daytime distraction. I always thought it was funny, right? But now she started to even shift since I've started mine, and calling it her biggest contract, because what I started to look at is how much it shifts and how it's going to help me even with my business, financially, of course, right?
Sure.
And then also, though, even looking at, what are we doing in this type of role? Where does sales come in? Where does marketing come in? Where does process come in? How do I incorporate that into my business and helping my clients and things like that? So I'm looking at that, and it's really cool. So that was one of the things, is I was like, this is a big contract. I have a really big contract right now.
I love
And
that.
so, yeah.
Well,
So
and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It ties so well into even conversations we've had about negotiation and things, where it's
Yes.
like, I'm not, oh, please hire me and
Right.
I'm gonna, I'll do anything, I'll take anything. It's no, I'm gonna provide a service,
Exactly.
and you are going to compensate that service, right? It's a contract. I love that. I love that that's how you're viewing it, especially because it also then puts into perspective the other things you have going on, right? This is a big contract. It's going to take a lot of my time. It's also going to be the bulk of my income right now, or, of my revenue. And
Exactly.
how am I going to prioritize these other things as well? I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Because even it's such a good point, even that as you're saying it and I'm hearing it back. What's so funny is we start to look at how when we do have like I've been in times in my business where I had one big client that was,
Mhm.
taking that was bringing in a bulk of the revenue and also taking a bulk of the time, right?
Yeah.
A major
Yeah.
bulk of the time. And so and that client was like, when you lose that client, what happens?
Right.
It almost feels like your entire business goes away. So I thought, let me
Mhm.
look at this as a similar situation, continuing working with my big client, but keeping and maintaining my other clients and the rest of my business so we can
Right.
continue to grow, right?
So you're
Continue
not
growing it. Mhm. And
solely relying on that one client as well.
exactly. And for
Mhm.
people who right now have a business and have a job or whatever it is, right? Or even if you have a business, but you are in that situation where you have one big client, continue thinking about the continuing to grow in the other spaces with other
Yeah.
clients because if something happens with that one big client, which I actually had a client recently who had one big client, and
Right.
that one big client left, like she moved
Mhm.
on, they parted ways for whatever reason,
Right.
and my client was like, whoa, what am I
Right.
to do?
That was 70% of my revenue. Like, what's my
Exactly.
plan? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And so we had to build up a plan for her to move forward. But
Mhm.
that was a thing, and that is a thing. So we get to look at it the same way. And in doing
Yeah.
so, speaking of updates, what I started to look at is um, how can I make all of it happen? Right?
Yeah.
How can I work with the big client and still have, my additional clients and other things that I'm serving, and plus family, right?
Right. That's not
So
those 2 things are not the only things you're doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what I did was I started looking at the structure of my day and overall, like, structure of my life, honestly. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, how can I structure my day so both can happen without me feeling overworked, overwhelmed, and out of touch, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, because we all know women who are working a job and have a business, and many times feel like they're working two jobs, 80 hours a week, and just
Mhm.
completely out of it.
Yeah.
And I knew
Yeah.
that couldn't be me. I couldn't do that.
Or feeling like I'm doing a poor job at both
Yes.
because
Hmm.
I can't give all of myself to either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually feeling like I'm doing a poor job at home because I'm giving all of
Mhm.
myself to both of these
Yep.
and
So
nothing.
now I'm a bad mom, I'm
Now
a
I'm a
bad
bad mom.
partner, I'm a bad yeah. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. It comes up so often. So the first thing I did was I looked at, like, structure. Like, what does my day get to look like? What if
Mhm.
a meeting runs late? Or what if I've got some extra work that I need to do? How do I modify things for my business? And then also, how do I get the kids to karate or to golf
Mm.
practice or track or,
Right, you
whatever it
got
is that
4
we're doing?
kids, that's a lot of
Right.
extracurriculars.
Exactly. How am I
Yeah.
gonna ensure that dinner is made and,
Mhm.
and that my clients and, I have my membership, the Fit Mommy Makeover membership. How am I gonna ensure that those people feel like they're
Mhm.
you know, getting what they need, getting the results that they need?
Yeah.
And so I started looking at everything, and it actually made me feel like I had more structure, which is funny. Because of the
Mm.
big client, I know exactly what I need to do with that. And then now with my business, I'm like, okay, here's how much time I'm going to spend on marketing. Here's how much time I'm going to spend with this client. Here's how much time I'm
Mm.
going to spend doing this mentorship. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Here's how much time I'm going to spend on YouTube. Talking
Right.
and posting about the things that I'm doing. Right.
Yeah. So you're
So
building things around the structure of that big client.
exactly,
And
exactly.
that big client, you
Mhm.
already know, okay, I gotta be there at 9 or I gotta be there at 8 or whatever,
Exactly.
whatever it is. So that structure's already built in, and now
Mhm.
where are the pieces I can fit around it?
Exactly. And
That's
then in
awesome.
balancing the responsibilities, understanding
Mhm.
that sometimes the kids are going to have a dentist appointment, or a doctor's appointment. That actually happened last week. A doctor's appointment,
Yeah.
2 for all 4 kids had doctor's appointments. So we split it into 2 days,
Yeah.
and so how am I to get to the doctor's appointment, get back for work,
Mhm.
all of these things. And then even where do I pull my husband in, at times where, I was always able to take the kids to the doctor's appointments and stuff.
Right.
So it's like, when do I pull him in? And so really creating serious structure and being intentional about it
Yeah.
is a game changer when you're trying to balance both. You know?
Absolutely. And it sounds to me like you were also very careful in choosing that big client and making sure
Mhm.
there would be some flexibility there,
Oh, yeah.
right? They're not saying you must have your butt in your chair between 9 and 5 every day, and there's no room
Mhm.
for school pickups or for going to the doctor's office, what have you, right? You chose a space where,
Right.
yes, there's that structure, and they will
Mhm.
also provide the flexibility that you need when those things need to be built in.
Exactly. I love that you said that because I was talking to someone recently, and they were trying to figure out what they could do to make some extra while during a low season, essentially, right?
Sure.
And so it was, I can't remember what the one role was, but it was extremely strict. It was like, you come in at 8, you clock out at 5, you get an hour
Mhm.
for lunch, that's it, right?
Right.
And then the other one was something like driving an Uber or Amazon package delivery. So it was
Mhm.
one of those type of things.
Yeah.
And she chose the Amazon thing, Amazon, Uber, whatever it was. And the reason was that level of flexibility. And
Yeah.
she was like, I'll do this while I find something that's going to give me a little more flexibility.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Because if you're doing, I mean, I don't know how it is with, like, Amazon, but if you're doing, like, Uber or something like that where you decide, "Okay, I have a couple hours, I'm gonna start accepting rides or
Right,
start accepting
exactly.
deliveries," or whatever it is, versus, "Okay, I have to be doing this between these hours every day."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't think all Amazon, like if you work for actual Amazon, it's a little rough, but I think that okay. So I see people I see people come over here and they're in their regular cars and they're dropping off Amazon boxes, right? So
Oh,
those people
interesting.
are like freelancing. I think they go and they get, they say, okay, I'm going to take,
Mhm.
2 hours today and do routes or whatever, and they go to Amazon, pick up some packages and come and they
Oh,
get paid.
interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
know they did that.
I know this was a thing like 3 years ago. I assume it's still a thing because I still see people in regular cars.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that, yeah, there are lots of ways to make it work.
Right.
And for me, I'm listening to you talking about being so intentional with these structures, and I'm thinking, gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work to get to the point where you're, structuring everything and planning ahead and all that stuff. But when I was talking to you sort of outside of recording,
Yeah.
it sounded like you loved it. Like you were so excited that some of the structure was just put on you, right? But
Mhm.
so, like, even on day 1, you were like, "Oh my gosh, my day is so different."
It's
So,
so
like, tell
true.
us tell us about, like, that transition kind of
Yeah.
from solopreneur, I'm making my own schedule, I'm doing my own thing,
Mhm.
to Monday morning, gotta be at this
Yeah.
job. What was that like?
It's so funny because number one, I love change. It's weird to
Mm,
say because a lot of people are like, I can't stand change. My husband does not like anything to change. I
yeah.
am very much like, you know what, I'm doing something different. That's awesome, right? So there was a bit of that, I'm sure. That's why
Yeah.
I said that. But then also it was, and I talked about this before, since for about 6 months, and it maybe ended in April or May, but 6 months prior to that was a really rough time in my life.
Yeah.
Just losing we talked about it a bunch of times. I think I talked about it on here sometime,
Mhm.
losing family members and things like that,
Yeah.
several over a period of time. And so I kind of dropped my business a bit. Like I wasn't really doing that. I wasn't marketing. I was
Yeah.
essentially serving my clients that I had, but I wasn't seeking additional clients.
Yeah.
So in that, I was also it felt like all over the place. And I
Mhm.
couldn't get that intentionality around what I needed to do or structure. Like I couldn't wrap my
Mhm.
brain around it the way I normally would be able to. So I think this came in at a perfect time to be like, okay, well, you know that from this time to this time during the day, you're going to be doing this,
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so now you also know that you still get to cook for your family. You get to, create YouTube content. You get to create, content and workouts and meal plans and all these things for
Mhm.
the folks in Fit Mommy Makeover membership. And you still get to like all these things that you get to do still. So how do you create that? And
Yeah.
it kind of felt exciting figuring out how I was going to do everything
Right,
almost,
right.
right?
Like, what time do I have to get up to get a workout in
Right.
before going to this job?
Yes, because
Yeah.
that is super important for me. I'm like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
gonna get up and get my workout in. So then what time does it have to be so I can get to the work, get to the, get started? Because I do work from home. So I will say that to folks.
Yeah.
So what time do I need to, get up? I'll have to work out in my basement now, no longer heading to the gym to work out
Mhm.
unless I get up at 5. And
Mm.
I'm not a get up at 5 person anymore. So
I have never been a get up at 5 person, so I understand.
I only did it when I lost weight. I've never been a
Mhm.
morning person.
Mhm.
And when I say never been, I mean my husband and I can sleep till noon. On
Mm.
a like if it's a Tuesday and we don't have anything to do, we will sleep till noon. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
without a problem. Just
Like,
like
I will
it's
just skip the whole morning. We're just not doing morning.
that's it. Right? The kids figured it out. They're like, Mommy and Daddy don't want to get up, so we'll make breakfast ourselves. Like and
Mm,
people are like, why do your
mm.
kids know how to make breakfast? Probably because we slept till noon.
I was just talking to a friend the other day. She has an 18-month-old, and she was
Oh,
like, "I cannot wait until the day when she can just get up, get her own, pour her
right.
cereal and not come and wake me up," right?
Yes, exactly.
So
Because
you're
right
living the
now,
dream.
whew, she's got at least 5 years,
I
you
know.
know?
I didn't tell her that, but I
You're like,
yeah.
"Yes, it'll happen." You
Mhm.
know? Not gonna
Mhm.
say when, but
Yeah. But I
yeah.
I'm so excited for you, and
Mhm.
I'm really glad that we're talking about this stuff. I'm wondering if we can get into kind of the logistics for folks, maybe people who are working a job and wanting to start a business, or who are
Mhm.
working their
Ooh,
business and thinking I may need to go back to work, or like, how can people start to plan for and make a transition into doing both and making it
yeah,
work, right? Like,
yeah.
what are the things we should be considering? So one that comes to
Mhm.
mind for me, we did kind of talk about it briefly, is that job going to be flexible in the ways you need it to be,
Right.
right? Is it something where, you know what, I do my best work on my business in the morning, so I'm going to do my business from 7 to 11,
Yeah.
and then my job from 11 to right, like that. Is
Mhm.
there flexibility in my start time, in my end time?
Yeah.
Is there flexibility where maybe I can use my lunch hour to get some stuff done, or what have you?
Mhm.
So that would be one thing I would say is, consider where the areas are that can be flexible in your work, and maybe you need to, as much as you can, choose a job or a main client,
Mhm.
right, that is going to allow that flexibility for you.
Yeah.
And then another important thing is, this is sort of the legal aspect of things. Make sure that you have looked through your employee handbook about having another business, right? That
Right.
you're not in an
Mhm.
industry that's competing, right? You don't have like some
Exactly.
non-compete thing, or if it is, in some cases, I know people will say, we know you do this same kind of work elsewhere. You can promote yourself. You can go do these things
Mhm.
during this time, or maybe it's, you better not be um, you know, in the same space as where this company is, because that is a conflict of interest, right? So make sure you're figuring out legally what are the rules.
Exactly.
Maybe it's the jobs are totally separate, right? Like, I'm a software engineer during the day for a lending company,
Mhm.
right? Like, as long as I'm not doing like small business loans in my side business, right? There's no
Exactly. Yep.
there's no competitive issue there, right? So
Mhm.
those, I think, are the two that I that first come to my mind. But
Yeah.
what about you?
When I think about it, so are we talking about people who are wanting to start a business or people who are going back to work?
I mean, I guess both.
Yeah. So for people, I'll lean into the people who are going back.
Mhm,
I would say, especially if you're going back and you're still going to really, really like be into your business as well.
mhm,
I would say ensure that you've kind of separated the spaces. And what I
mhm,
mean by that is If you're in a situation where you use social media a lot and you've been using LinkedIn a lot for what you do,
Right.
I'm not sure if you can have a second LinkedIn or not, but if you can't, then maybe switch up your LinkedIn. If you go to my LinkedIn, I've switched up my LinkedIn so it is about, it's more in the line
Mhm.
of what I do for work, like what my big
Right.
contract is, right?
Right.
Whereas like on, my Facebook, my Instagram, my YouTube, all of that align with my business. So
Mm.
there's no conflict there, right?
Right.
Um, the other thing is, I would say also ensure that you're updating your resume in a way that highlights your skills and your level in those skills. And I can't remember what the
Mm.
word I'm looking for is, but
Like
um,
your proficiency.
yes. So if
Mhm.
you are at a level of you've been, you've been running your own business for 7 years, does it make sense for you to go in and, let's say, even if you came out of corporate, when you stopped in corporate, you were at, I don't know, not maybe a supervisor level, or even like a regular, like, worker. I don't know. I can't even think of the name of what we call it.
Individual contributor.
Individual contributor.
Contributor.
Thank you. You're right.
Yeah.
Individual contributor level, right?
Mhm.
Then now you've been on your own, running your own
You're a
business for
CEO.
7, 8 years. Exactly. You're a CEO.
Mhm.
Maybe you can look at, like, when you're updating your resume, what have you done in these 8 years that are at a different level? I would even
Mm.
suggest hiring someone to help you with your resume. So you're not doing it alone, because when was the last time you wrote a resume? Number one.
Right.
And
Right.
number two, do you know how, like, if someone is proficient at writing resumes and you tell them what you did, they know how to speak to it so it aligns to, the positions that you're going for,
Mhm.
versus, because many times we sit there like, oh yeah, I just write, I've just done websites and stuff like that, and you say it like it's no big deal, right?
Mm.
Meanwhile, you're not just doing websites, you're actually taking someone through a customer journey. Not only
Right.
have you done their websites, but you've also like, seen how the marketing needs to go.
Branding, marketing, SEO, like there's so many things in there. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're understanding these things, but you're saying
Mhm.
it as if I just do websites,
Right.
and that's the thing, because we tend to not necessarily promote our skills in the way that we
Mhm.
should be.
And we downplay things, especially if they're things that come easily to us,
Yes.
not realizing, no, those are marketable skills. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
and so those are the things we get to, like, really, really lean into. And as
Mhm.
you're looking at, taking a big contract, ensure your resume highlights what you've done while you've owned a business.
Mm. Mhm.
The sales, the marketing, and then at the level of sales and marketing that you've done it at,
Yeah.
different things that you've done while, whatever it is that you do for your business. Maybe you are a business coach or something, how you've used business strategy to help small businesses make multi-millions,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I wanna, just quickly go back to folks on the other side of things who are maybe working a full-time job and are now considering starting a business, and just quickly go through a couple of things with that. The
Hmm.
one big thing I see a lot is this business is secret, right? I have to do this secretly, and my job can't
Hmm.
know. If you
Yep.
can avoid that situation, avoid that situation, because how are you gonna market yourself if it's a secret? And
Yes.
if you are really marketing, people should be finding out.
Hmm.
So you need to find a situation where, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to tell everybody the second, like before you've even gotten your LLC or whatever, but I would say, to whatever extent you can, go into a situation that you don't have to hide what you're
Hmm.
doing, because the worst is then, oh, they found out. And
Right.
now it's this whole thing. Like, just if you're going to be creating a business that you're going to market into the
Hmm.
public, people are going to, hopefully, if you're doing it right, people are going to find out. So that's one.
Right.
And then,
Good point.
and then do your homework about, should I form an LLC, and, those pieces. We can probably do a whole episode on how to start a
Yeah.
business, but I would say the biggest thing is, if you are planning on having that business replace your job, start from the beginning, trying to set the boundaries that you hope to have with that business.
Yes.
That don't go into it like, well, I'm just going to do 100 hours a week and hope it goes okay. Like, be building in those structures
Mhm.
from the beginning, so
Yes.
that you're not running yourself ragged.
Exactly. Especially while you're doing both.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
structure is the big takeaway today. And that's something that I'm even going to start rethinking as I'm as I'm planning the next phases of my business. It's like, what's the structure going to look like? So I'm so glad we had this talk.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations again. I'm so excited for you and your big client. And yeah, I think we can leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will see you in the next one.
All right, take care.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, subscribe wherever you're listening now.
And if you loved what you heard, be sure to leave us a review. And make sure you share the podcast with incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid.
All right, we'll see you in the next one.